I like that intro.
And a Mrs. J special, that one. And we are live, and welcome to the rebranded channel, Breaking the Chains, Cult and Beyond, where we hope to expose all aspects of cult mindset and how people get involved, how people get out, and the coercive control that it has for keeping people in and helping people to break those chains. And as you can see tonight, we are still on the Scientology kick, because I am joined this evening by the very lovely Catherine Olson. Many of you probably already know a lot of the stories. So what we are planning to do tonight, this will be a two-parter, so there will be a second video later on. But tonight we're going to be talking about Catherine's escape and the adjustments from Scientology into everyday life. And we will do everything we can to bring hope to any ex-Scientologist or any Scientologists watching who are looking to get out. We do have a link to the Aftermath Foundation in the description. So if you are looking to get out or know somebody who's trying to get out, please go to the Aftermath website and they will be able to help. So good evening, Catherine.
Good evening, Liam. Nice to meet you.
And you. We've only had one. We've had some brief conversations, but we've not really had any long conversations. So
yeah, I love meeting new people in this community, because
absolutely, I love it. I've made some very good friends in the community since becoming more prominent in the community. I mean, I used to be the one that hid in the corner, but now I'm more apt and more involved, and made some really good friends, like our very own Mrs. J, who's down there in the chat modding for me again. Thank you, Mrs. J. Before we start, I just want to bring this up, and if you want to comment on it, you can. Just a question from ex-witness Virgin: how are the Headleys and Mike Rinder doing? You don't have to go.
They're all doing well, as far as I know. Yeah, everyone's doing well.
Excellent. Well, I know when I was having an email conversation with Claire a couple of weeks ago, she seemed to be doing fine.
Yeah, they're all doing well. I think everyone's weathered the hurricanes down there.
Yes, well. I was a little bit worried about that, especially for Mike. The Florida one was quite bad, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. But I think everybody was okay. I haven't heard anything negative. So
excellent.
Sounds like everyone's good.
And so, also to let people know, I forgot to do this in the intro, so just bear with me a second. We are still going to be doing the Fourth Wall shop for proceeds going to the Aftermath. It's in the process of changing, because obviously I'm no longer involved with the previous organization. So therefore we are in the process of changing that. So that will be back up and running before long. I am actually wearing one of our official Trouble Source t-shirts.
Oh, cool. Oh, you have like merch and stuff for your channel?
Well, I did it for the previous Discord that I was involved with. But
okay.
Now it's all switched over. We're going to have it for the channel, and it's to raise funds for the Aftermath Foundation.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it definitely. I can personally attest that it makes a huge difference having that support.
Absolutely, which does actually segue into the first question. How and what caused the change in mind to get you to escape and ultimately reach out to the Aftermath Foundation?
Okay, let's see. This was a long, drawn out process. And the majority of it happened over the course of a year. And before that year started, like that year mark started, I was already unhappy in what I was doing, and I was questioning whether or not I wanted to keep doing what I was doing. Not that I was thinking about leaving Scientology particularly, but I was not happy in the Sea organization. I wasn't happy. Like for a while, I was trying to think of like, what job do I actually want to do here, and can I be allowed to do it? Because eh, when you're in this Sea Org, you end up doing whatever job they want you to do, and you don't really have a say in it. You do sort of, kind of, like, you can be like, "Oh, I really don't want to work there if possible," but if you're in somebody's like bad graces, then they're going to be like, "Well, I don't care if you don't want to work there. That's where you're going to be." Um, but sometimes you'll get a choice, be like, "Hey, do you want to work in this area? Do you want to work in this area?" And for a while, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I really don't want to do anything. I want to be outside and garden or something. I don't want to be indoors anymore. 'Cause I spent 25 years in LA,
Mm.
working in the same building, in the same little tiny square few miles of space out of the vastness of Los Angeles in California. I
Mm.
was little bitty area. And um it was very confining, extremely confining, and I was just not happy there. And then I got sent to Columbus, Ohio, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm out of LA. That's fantastic. This is so nice being out of LA."
And this is where I'll give my apologies, and I will change the description after we finished. I put Portland, not Columbus.
Oh,
Apologies.
well, I started in Scientology in Portland.
That might have been where
Yeah.
the confusion came in, because when we were writing the description last night, we were both again, Mrs. J was helping me out with it. We were both convinced it was Portland org, and that's why we put Portland.
That's where I started in 1992. That's where I started in Scientology. My sister walked in, did a personality test, and was like, "Oh, wow, this is cool." And then told my mom. My mom read Dianetics, and my mom's like, "Wow, this is cool. This is really neat, and this is awesome." And long story short, we all ended up joining staff in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got recruited for the Sea Org. So I think everyone who's in the chat understands there's different levels in Scientology, not necessarily like the processing and auditing levels. There's processing and auditing, training levels, but there's also levels of like your involvement. Like,
absolutely,
you can just be a quote public person who's taking courses and doing auditing and donating their money and going bankrupt, or you can be on staff in one of the organizations that's like out in the various cities. Portland, there's some in the UK, as you know, and they're all like scattered all over the world.
Yep.
Or you can join
where I am in France. We've got a nice shiny new one down in Paris.
Right. You got a brand new one just for you.
I think there's another one there's one in Lyon, I think. And there's a couple of others that are in some really small towns that I hadn't even heard of until I was looking to see where the orgs were in France.
Yeah. So when I was in Portland, I was on staff like I would be like, if you go to any of those orgs, that's like what the staff, the staff go, they work in the org, but they also have another job that they use to support themselves, because they mostly cannot support themselves just working for the org. They never make enough money. Most of the orgs are always in some sort of financial straits, crisis, various levels of that, various stages of that. And so I was in Portland for a couple of years. Then in 1994, I joined the Sea Org, and I went to LA, which means you basically dedicate your whole life and you sign the billion-year contract. I'm going to come back lifetime after lifetime and do this.
Yeah, I've got a question about the billion-year contract for part two, so we'll brush over that.
Okay. And then, so I was there from 1994 to 2019, and I got sent to Columbus as part of it was very unusual. It wasn't a usual thing that was done. This is like, it was like the first time this was done, basically, where they sent a whole bunch of Sea Org members into an org like this. because they didn't have enough staff. And the org had been renovated, the building had been renovated, sitting there empty for months because they didn't have the staff to fill it. And factually, if they were to recruit all of their current public to be staff, they wouldn't have any public. So it was really bad.
Oh yeah.
So they sent like over 100 Sea Org members to Columbus, and I was one of them. And that was great. That was the beginning of me like kind of being more exposed to the world a little bit, because I ended up in Division 6, which is the public division. And that's where you get in the new people, and you talk to a lot of people who are not yet in Scientology and trying to get them to be interested in Scientology. And that is quite eye-opener. That is quite an eye-opener, because the amount of the things you have to do to kind of start having a conversation with somebody, or having, someone even willing to have a conversation about it without going like, oh, Scientology? Oh, no, thank you. Like, we were selling books and selling Dianetics books, and you wouldn't mention Scientology. You're not supposed to mention Scientology. Talk about Dianetics.
I always find that quite funny, because anybody who even has a remote idea of Scientology, we hear the word Dianetics and it's like Scientology.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people, it depends. Some people are more informed than others, and we actually hit a lot of areas where there was more like ethnic areas, like people, English wasn't their first language, and you have these little pockets. Columbus is actually really fascinating in this way. They have a whole like Somalian community. They have like these different communities of people. It's really interesting. I met a lot of really cool people, actually. And they have like a Nepalese, Somalian. They have like these different areas of the city where there's like a concentration of people, of these people. And Dianetics is translated into 50 languages, and so are actually most of the books are, or all the books are 50 languages. But the concentration is always on Dianetics. You start with Dianetics. And because these people they don't have the same kind of connection necessarily to like social media and things like that. And if they do these talks, like this talk we're having right now, it's all in English, and so they're not going to be necessarily like interested in watching something or listening to something that's not their native language. And so they miss a lot on as far as like what Scientology really is. So unfortunately, it's easier to be like, oh yeah, this will help you in your work and help you in your life. And of course, as a staff member, Sea Org member, long-term Scientologist, I thought it would help them. I never had the idea, oh, this is just a scam. I'm scamming people. I'm working on scamming people. Like that was never in my mind as a thing. So yeah.
Absolutely. So once you got to Columbus and you were out there meeting more people, I'm sure you came up against the whole Scientology is a cult and people trying to tell you.
People yelling at you and being like, get out of, Scientology cult, and yelling and Xenu and all this stuff, and you're just like, whatever, it kind of rolls off you, sort of, because Hubbard has like all these policies and all these things and directives and things from, oh yeah, if you're being attacked, that means that you're doing something right. That means that you're really expanding. Like the organization is expanding if you're being attacked. And so that's the idea you have. Isn't that amazing? Like I remember having a conversation with the public executive secretary, who's like over all of Division 6 at one point, and she's like, yeah, I think it's really fascinating that we're getting this many people attack like yelling at you guys in the streets and stuff because it shows that we're really reaching people. It's a good thing.
I
Isn't it?
suppose
Yeah.
that's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
So was it? So it was during that period where you started to think about things. So where did it go from there?
It really started during the pandemic when I was away from the actual physical building for a couple weeks, for like almost like 6 weeks or so. Um and I just felt so different being away from that building, and I felt so good, and we were allowed to like take walks and stuff, and because we were all stuck in the apartments, and so it's like, okay, you don't have to just sit in your apartment staring at the wall. You know, you can take a walk, you can go around. You can't go to anyone else's apartment because it was, COVID and
Yeah.
social distancing and the whole thing, but you can go with people in your apartment and you can take a walk, and it was so nice. So I was like going on walks every day, and I was like, wow, this feels so good. And I didn't consciously think like it feels good being out of the building. That's not what I was thinking. I was just like, this feels good. Walking around, looking at things, being outside more. This just feels good. Being away from the whole environment, because a lot of it is like, every day you're with the same people, you do the same kind of thing, you're there all the time, you're around this whole group all the time, and you're always being influenced in some way by people around you and by the environment. So you're out of that, you're just around a few people for a while. It feels really different. So that was very helpful to me. And then um I made my illegal Facebook account. And actually it started out innocently enough, where I was like, because I was in charge of promotion, and so I wanted to see some of the other orgs, because I heard, like, for example, I heard that London had this like awesome stuff they did in social media and all this stuff. I'm like, I want to do that for Columbus. So, but I couldn't see it unless I joined Facebook.
Absolutely.
And as a Sea Org member, you're not supposed to be on Facebook. You're not allowed to be on any social media. Sea Org specifically. With staff, it's different. Staff can do what they want. Public can do what they want, but to a point. But with Sea Org members, you're not supposed to be on any social media. You can like hardly have access to a phone. Your internet is filtered when you're inside
Mhm.
the org, all this stuff, right? So um everybody pretty much pretty much everyone ended up with a phone. Uh, so because we were all stuck in the apartments, pretty much everyone ended up with a phone so that they could call people and sell books and call Scientologists and sell more services and get donations, and all this stuff was still going on because the org, had to make money and still pay for they had to pay the staff, and anyway. So I ended up with a phone, and I made a Facebook account, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool." And I started looking at all these different orgs' Facebook accounts, and then I was like, "I wonder if I could find some people that I used to know. I wonder if I could find some old friends."
This is where your lovely husband comes into the
That's
picture.
right. That's right. And so I found him, and I sent him a friend request. I'm like, "This is cool. I'd love to talk to him. I haven't talked to him in so long. He's really cool." And he answered me, and then we started talking, and we basically haven't stopped.
Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing.
We haven't stopped talking. I think that we've probably talked to each other in some way. We've communicated in some way almost every day since we reconnected at that time. There may have been a couple days that we missed, but almost every day we have communicated in some way since then, which is pretty cool. Um,
That's always nice.
yeah, yeah, he's fabulous. So yeah, we started talking, and of course, I told him I was still involved in Scientology, and it was great, and everything was great, and it was, I loved it, and because I was lying to myself, and you know, trying to really tell myself that I loved it, even though I was like unhappy. and and then we spoke on the phone several times. We texted a lot. And then I had a whole thing where this should probably be the subject of a whole separate talk, but I had I went to the hospital. I went to the emergency room and had surgery in the middle of COVID, and where I'd never had any surgery before in my life. I never had anesthetic. I never had oxycodone, which basically wired me for 12 hours. And the nurses and doctors were like, "No, that's supposed to relax you." And I'm like, "No, I'm wired for 12 hours. I didn't sleep. Anyway." So that was a whole adventure. And then after that, there was an incident where one of my roommates, excuse me, sorry, I need to clear my throat. Hold on one second.
It's okay.
So one of my roommates was trying to help this guy that she knew in Colorado actually, and he was flirting with her and stuff, and she would have gotten in trouble, and then he basically threatened to off himself if she wouldn't talk to him anymore, or something like that. And so as a result of this, everyone's phones got taken and inspected. And I knew this was coming. I knew this was going to happen because she was my roommate, and my other roommate had found out that everyone's phones were going to be taken. I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I deleted all my texts with John, all my call history, everything off that phone. I'm like, I don't need anybody to see. I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yeah,
No.
I know Scientology have a lot of technology that they use to spy on people, but I'm sure they haven't got the technology to get into the chip and extract everything that's been deleted.
And I wasn't on the radar like that either. So, because I was never in very much trouble for some years. Years ago, but for a good 10 years, I was doing pretty well. As far as being trusted, nobody really thought I was up to anything. I never had a history of oh, she has doubts on the Sea Org or anything like that. So they didn't really spend a lot of time with mine. So then they took my phone, and I expected to get it back. I was like, "Oh, okay, go ahead, take my phone." And then the next day, when everyone, most people got their phones back, I was told, "Oh, actually, you don't need a phone, and you're just talking to people in LA you shouldn't be talking to." And because I had all my friends were in LA, Sea Org members in LA, and I had just gotten surgery, and so I was talking to people and like, "Hey, this just happened to me. How's everybody doing there?" and stuff like that. And I was just talking to my friends, right? And it was like, "Oh, you don't need to be talking to these people, and you don't need a phone." And I was like, "What? Excuse me? I bought this phone with my own money. I paid for the plan with my own money." And I'm like, "That's my phone. It's not an org phone. That's my phone." And in that conversation, I knew that I could only go so far without sounding without them trying to find out a little bit more "Why do you want a phone so bad?" type thing. So I kind of backed off from that, and I'm like, "Okay, fine, whatever." But I still have my iPod. And with an iPod, you can basically do everything a phone does as long as you have some sort of Wi-Fi. So I would find Wi-Fi wherever I could. And I just kept talking to John, which was great. And and then, eventually everybody went back to the building. And I remember how I felt when we were going back to the org building. I was like, "I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back." And I was just like, I just had this feeling of just absolute dread, and I couldn't even identify what was really happening. But I was like, I don't want to go back. And remember the first day I went back in the building, I was like, this feels horrible. I hate it here. This feels really bad. And then after a while I kind of got used to it again, and I was like, whatever. And I ended up being out of the org quite a bit, doing passing out promotions, selling books. I was around the city a lot. And because I was trusted, I was allowed to go by myself, and I would go and I would hang out. I would go around the Ohio State University, which is huge campus, hundreds of buildings. And because it's a university, it's like you could just walk into any building. They were just open, from morning till evening. You could just walk in. It doesn't matter who you were. Like, you didn't have to show any ID. You just walk in the buildings. So I would go around and I would go to their bulletin boards, and I would put promotion on their bulletin boards. And I would do that every week, because I would go around every week and I would hit a bunch of buildings. And then by the time I got back to those buildings, they had taken it all down. So I just kept putting it up, and they kept taking it down. So, and at the university there was Wi-Fi everywhere. So then I was able to talk to John, text with him, talk to him, and more importantly, or just as important as talking to him, I was watching and listening to all sorts of videos on YouTube, just like this one.
And that's what we hope others will do.
Yeah, so I listened to a lot of Chris Shelton stuff. He's very helpful. He does fantastic work. He does really good work on really explaining things about, like, with a really sane viewpoint. And I listened to a lot of his stuff, a lot of Mark and Claire's interviews wherever I could find them. I listened to tons of stuff from Mike. I listened to a lot of stuff from Aaron. And with all of these and hearing people's stories and description of what happened to them when they were in the Sea Org, and it's just like it really started making me open my eyes a lot. And then talking to John was the most important part, because I could have done all this sort of on my own, and I really doubt it would have had the same effect, because I would have just gone back to like, oh, well, I just have overts and withholds, and I just need to handle myself. And you don't have anyone to talk to about it. There's no interaction with anyone else. I don't really think you can change your mind as easily. Mm-hmm. Because talking to him was like, he got me to see it was an abusive relationship. He equated it with an abusive relationship, and without saying like, oh, you're in a cult or you're in an abusive relationship, he'd be like, well, in an abusive relationship, blah, blah, so and so and so and blah 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 happens. And then I think about it, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty much what I'm experiencing. And then we'd talk more, and I would tell him more about what I felt like, and he'd tell me about what happens when you get when someone gets trafficked, and just various things like that. And it really opened up my eyes and got me to see what was going on. And I'd already told him, like, when my phone got taken, I told him that my phone got taken, right? And that was already a huge step to tell somebody something like that, because you're not supposed to talk about like any internal problems or anything that happens to you, or if you're in trouble, you don't talk about that to someone who's not in the Sea Org.
Everything outside the Sea Org is supposed to be wonderful.
Yeah, well, everything outside the Sea Org is just like,
or the perception to people that the Sea Org is all wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. The Sea Org's wonderful. You're always doing great. And if you're not doing that great, you're on the way to fix the fact that you're not doing great. But you don't talk about that. You never talk about that. Oh, I love cats. Oh, that was great.
I love her too, but I'm kind of busy at the moment, Animal.
I'm surprised none of mine have come up here yet. They probably will. Yeah, so yeah, you want to really put on a good public relations perception. You don't want to tell people that anything is screwed up or you're unhappy or anything. I mean, you'll get in trouble for that if someone finds out you're doing that. So yeah, so telling him that my phone had been taken was already like a huge step. Telling him my phone had been taken and I was pissed off about it, really, really, really pissed off about it, was a huge step. And then I just kept telling him more and more about what I felt. And that helped me to see for myself how I was feeling and how I was unhappy. And I wanted something more out of life than just what I was doing. And I didn't know how to go about it really. I was like, okay, I think I want to leave, but I should probably tell somebody so that I can, route out the right way, right? Which is, you tell somebody you want to leave and then you get interrogated and you get a confessional, and I probably would have been sent back to LA and a lot of stuff could have happened from that. And
yeah,
it's just it's very damaging. It's very demeaning what they do with you when you say you want to leave. Very demeaning. And I just like, I don't want to go through that. I was just like, I really don't want to go through. I really don't want to go that route. But I can't blow. I mean, that would be completely like, no, I can't do that. That's just can't do that. That's completely like, I'll just be screwed. I won't be able to go up the bridge. There goes my eternity,
Yep, absolutely.
So,
And that's where the whole coercive control and everything that Scientology has over its members comes into play, because you become so ingrained that if you do anything against Scientology, that's it. You're doomed. You're done.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's the same in Christianity, I guess. It's, if you don't believe this, you're going to hell.
Yeah, it's very similar. It's because I'm starting to see more and more that there's degrees of extremism. Like Scientology is like an extreme version of quote religion, and it's just very I don't know how to describe other than saying it's an extremist group, fundamental extremist group, doesn't want to change, doesn't want to update any of their policies or their thinking or anything to like kind of go, be more acceptable to society. And instead of changing things and improving things, maybe they just stick to it and they try to say that it's not this way when it is. Oh no, we don't practice disconnection, but they do.
Absolutely.
Oh no, we don't fair game anybody. What's that? What's fair game? We don't fair game anybody, but they do. And no, we don't abuse our staff. We don't, but they do. No. There's no such thing as Xenu. Like, what is that's got nothing to do with Scientology, but it does. It's like, I don't know how long they're going to be able to go on just saying that all this stuff is BS when there's so many people that talk about it.
I'm sure it'll all have to change eventually, but I can't see it changing while David Miscavige is still in.
Yeah.
Come on. It might change after whoever takes over, but certainly I don't see David Miscavige making changes.
Oh no. No, he's got it too good. He's really got it too good. He's waited on hand and foot. He's got all this power over people, and he just gets whatever he wants. He eats all the best food. All his clothes are tailored. He goes wherever he wants on a, uses Tom Cruise's private jet to go wherever he wants, I'm sure. And it's just like, why would he change anything?
Yeah, as Bot Buddies just said in the chat, Hubbard didn't have a second wife, but he did.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, and Miscavige,
talking about the phone thing and being able to connect through your iPod, it reminded me back in the day when Ron Miscavige Sr. was still alive and he had his channel. He was telling the story of how he found out Scientology was a load of rubbish because David had given him a Kindle and he could get on the internet via his Kindle. It's like,
I loved hearing that story. I'm like, wow, that sounds similar to mine.
It was the first thing I thought of as you were talking about it. I was like, that is so the Rob Miscavige story. It's like, wow. Yet David's still allowed to run the church, but surely he should be in trouble for that one incident with Ron.
Yeah, that's right. And that's another thing I thought about once when. Okay, so I've talked about this in other interviews, but at one point in 2007, my mom and my sister came to see me, and they tried to convince me to leave, and I wasn't ready. And I freaked out, and I'm like, no, I'm not going. Right. So, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that?
You weren't ready to leave, but you had met up with your mum and your sister.
There was a reason I brought that up in connection with oh, this is why I brought it up. Okay, so sorry. So during that and after that and all around that, okay, so my mom got hooked up with Anonymous, right? And I was told about this by people in OSA about her connections and stuff. And so I'm thinking like, and she put things online and she put like a press release out on me and all this stuff, right? So somehow I found out about Jenna Miscavige, right? Around the same time, or maybe, I don't know, she's before that, but I found out about her and what she was up to. And I was like, okay, so if I'm not qualified to be here, why is David Miscavige qualified to be where he is with his niece attacking? If my mom's considered an attacker and she's like saying all this stuff about Scientology and blah blah blah, and that's going to disqualify me eventually, why is he not disqualified? I didn't ask anybody this because I knew I knew what would happen if I asked, but I thought it to myself. I'm like, how is this? This isn't fair.
The joy of being the man in charge, I guess.
Right? Yeah. But it's interesting because after all the stuff with Jenna happened, I think that they kind of changed how they dealt with people whose family members, attacked the church. Like they were a little bit more lenient about it. Because I know that's because other people would have the same thought I did, about how am I disqualified if he's not disqualified,
Absolutely.
And Absolutely. It's interesting that every single one of his family have come out against Scientology.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The amount of Miscaviges that have spoken out is just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
But you're going to the university. You're connecting into their Wi-Fi. You've watched the videos, Aaron and Mark and Claire and others. So, and obviously talking to John. How did we go from that to getting into connection with the Aftermath?
So, John the whole time was. I mean, I found this out afterwards because we've had a lot of conversations afterwards. But the whole time he had promised himself that if I wanted to leave and get out, he was going to help me, but he wasn't going to like force me into it. Right. So once I said, yes, I want to leave, but I don't know how to do it. He was looking for resources and ways to help me. And he found the Aftermath Foundation. And then he, lightly kind of, suggested to me that maybe I want to check out any groups online or like things like this that could help me to get out and to get started and give me resources, because I had like nothing. And I was kind of like, yeah, but they're all going to be just disgruntled ex-Scientologists, and yeah, I don't want to talk to these people. Like, I don't want to talk to any ex-Scientologists, ex-Seorg members, like, like Mike Render, these people. I don't want to talk to them. So he was very gently trying to like prod me in that direction, right? And finally he was like, you should check out this Aftermath Foundation. And I checked it out, and I was like, and I looked at who was on the board, and I was like, I'm not talking to any of these people. No, they're just, oh no, I can't talk to these people. And so I went with that for a little while. And then I finally was like, okay, fine. He's like, well, you should at least ask like what they can do. And I'm just like, once I do that, there's no turning back. That's what I'm thinking to myself. There's no turning back. Once I start like actually talking to an actively declared suppressive person, there's no turning back. Like that's major. And if I ever tell anybody that I'm doing this, I'm going to be cut off from everything and shipped back to LA. And they're going to try to convince me that I'm just a complete, out ethics scumbag and everything. So that was a huge step. So just prior to that, I saw a video where it was a video of Chris Shelton's where he talks about the Truth Rundown. I don't know if you remember what that is. But it's and I always was wondering what the Truth Rundown was, right? Because it's confident, like when you're in Scientology, you don't know what it is unless you receive it. It's very confidential, right? So he was talking about this Truth Rundown, and I heard this, and I'm like, that's gaslighting. I'm like, I can never imagine being convinced that what I saw or what I experienced was not what I experienced. And that's what the Truth Rundown is. It's they're telling you, oh, you didn't actually see, like, this is an extreme example, but you didn't actually see David Miscavige punch somebody. That didn't actually happen. That you manufacture that because you have a similar overt, like you beat somebody up or you attacked somebody in some way, if even in like a previous lifetime. And that's why you saw that. Or you didn't actually know about or see or observe staff never getting paid. That's not what you saw.
Like, everybody's being paid on time.
That's right. That's right. And so I thought about it, and I'm like, I will never let somebody convince me that what I saw was not what I saw or what I experienced. I would never, nope, not doing it. And once I decided that, I was like, and once I decided that, I knew that I had decided that there was some aspect of auditing that I would never accept. I would never do. And I'm like, okay, so if there's some aspect of auditing that you will never do, that's it. You're not doing this anymore, because it's for me, it was like all or nothing. You're either in or you're out. Like you're either gonna cooperate with the auditor and tell all and the case supervisor and accept all the processing that you get and confessionals and whatever, or you're not. There's no like halfway. You can't, like, for me, there's no like halfway, like, okay, well, I'll accept this, but if they ever tell me I have to do the Truth Rundown, I won't do it. I'm like, no, it's not happening. So then around that time or shortly after that, after I'd seen that video and made up my mind about it, was when we started talking about the Aftermath Foundation. And basically John sent an email to them and asked various things. And it was funny because he sent this email and he's like, God, I feel like a complete fool. Okay, here I am never been a Scientologist, never been a Sea Org member, staff, never been connected to Scientology except to know you, who's a Scientologist. And here I am sending an email to the Aftermath Foundation saying, I know. So I'm talking to a Sea Org member who's in the Sea Org who's thinking about leaving. And they just thought he was completely full of shit. Actually, Aaron was the first person he contacted because he was on the email. He answered the email. And Aaron's like, no, I think this guy's full of shit. I think he's making this up or something. This sounds really fishy. Like, there's no way that you're talking to a Sea Org member who's in the Sea Org right now. There's no way. So they kind of didn't believe him, but gave him he gave him some information anyway. Like, yes, we can help her, but she needs to contact us on her own.
Yeah,
like, she needs to reach out. And so John sent that email to me, and I thought about it for like a couple weeks, and then I was just like, okay, fine, I'll just do it. So then I wrote a very brief email and didn't give any information about myself, and I don't think I got any answer. And then I sent another email after that, and I was like, okay, giving them a little bit more information. And I'm like, I'd like to talk to Mark Headley, right? Because I'd seen a lot of Mark's videos, and I sort of knew him. I remembered him when he was in Gold, and I wanted to talk to him, right? So then they answer, Aaron answered my email. I didn't know it was Aaron until later, but he answered my email, gave me Mark's number, and be like, yeah, go ahead. I mean, he said he'll talk to you. And so when I was out at the university, I started texting Mark, and we had a whole conversation. Then I ended up on the phone with him that day, and he said, just whatever you need, we can help you with. If you want a plane ticket, if you want a bus ticket, if you want someone to pick you up, if you want to go next month, if you want to go tomorrow, we can help you. And I'm just like, okay, cool. And he's like, when do you know when you're going to be ready to leave? And I said, maybe a month. I ended up leaving 4 days later. Because it was too much.
History. But I just want to interject at this point and say to people in the chat, this is why, for me, everything I'm doing with the channel, with the merch, to support the Aftermath Foundation is because of people like Catherine and coming out with nothing. And there isn't big organizations out there that are going to help people. I find it in my line of work. I work with ex-cult members with breaking PTS and PTSD and stuff like that. So supporting something like the Aftermath, it is something we can all do to help, and they do help people. Catherine is a prime example of it.
Yeah, I can personally attest to that, and I can keep attesting to it because I work for the foundation now, so I know we do.
I wasn't going to bring that up, but
it's okay. I've told people that I'm not on the board. But I do work for the foundation, just to clarify, because sometimes people think people are board members and then they're not board members anymore, and it's whatever. Just turns kind of confusing sometimes. Anyway, where was I? Okay, so
you were on the phone.
Yeah. So I spoke to Mark, and then I thought about it a little more, and I was just like, it was such a strain. It's such a strain when it's like being a double agent.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I can equate it to. That's what I can imagine. Like a double agent would feel like. You're under such strain because you're around people and you're constantly lying to people. I don't know. You're not saying what's really going on, and you have to hide quite a bit. And it was an enormous strain for me. So I'm like, I'm not going to keep this up for a month after I've now spoken to them. Like, I can't do this. So then the universe kind of aligned, and there was a few people from HCO who actually went on leave. Wait, did they go on leave? Yeah, they were on leave to the UK. like the main person in HCO who ran a lot of things, who was like over the ethics division and various things, right? She went on a leave with her husband to the UK. So she was gone for a couple weeks. And then the director of special affairs, who's the OSA person in the org, went to quarantine. So she was in quarantine. And then the ethics officer, actually both ethics officers, also went to quarantine. So everybody was kind of out of the picture for this little space of time. And to top things off, I was getting auditing at the time.
Mhm.
So I couldn't do anything odd, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I was managing to not tell my auditor about any of this, and I just, to me, it was like, I'm not doing anything bad. I'm trying to sort my life out. I'm not bringing this up. I'm not bringing this up. I'm just not gonna talk about it. I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm not gonna act weird, you know? So, and then the person who was supervising the auditing, because it was done, whatever, that my auditor was doing a course, and so it was a bit different, and there was a supervisor supervising the auditing, and that person went to quarantine, so we couldn't go in session,
The
right?
stars are aligning.
Yeah. So then I told Mark and Aaron that I could oh, I remember what we did. I um I had my phone back at that point, but I didn't have the plan activated, but I got it activated so that I could use the hotspot and I could just keep using my iPod, right? So then I could talk to them at any time. And I told them that I could go in a few days, like that week, like probably I said either Friday or Monday, because those are the days I could go to the university by myself. And so Claire got me a plane ticket. I got the plane ticket on the boarding pass on Thursday. And, and then I was told Thursday night, I was told, oh, guess what? You can go in session tomorrow because blah, blah, blah can supervise instead. And I'm like, that's great. Oh, good. Oh, yeah, I'll be session. We'll get enough sleep, because when you go in session, you
Yeah.
have to get enough sleep. You have to eat. You can't be like all messed up, you know? And so that night, so I was supposed to leave the next day. I was supposed to get on the plane the next day, unbeknownst to all these people. And so that night, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep until like 4. And then I was texting people and whatever, right? I was texting Mark, I was texting John, getting everything ready. And yeah, so I couldn't sleep until like 4, and then I woke up at 8 or whatever. And so I went into the org and I'm like, I just couldn't sleep last night. I don't know what the problem was. I don't know why. I just couldn't sleep. And my auditor was like, whatever. And she was mad at me, right? Because she was trying to complete her course, and to complete her course, she had to finish my auditing and stuff. And so I had to have a whole conversation with like the supervisor, and like promise I was going to do certain things. Okay, take vitamins and do all this stuff so you can sleep, and because you have to go in session tomorrow. I'm like, okay, right. And then I was like, okay. And then I go to my senior and I'm like, well, I might as well go do promo at the university. I might as well just go. Can you give me a ride? And so she took me and dropped me off at the university. Poor woman. Anyway, and that was the last I saw her. And so she drops me off. And as soon as I get dropped off, I go into one of the buildings. I put the SIM card back in my phone, because I had taken everything out in the morning, because I suddenly freaked out and I'm like, someone's gonna find out what I'm doing. And I took everything apart and I put the SIM card in my pocket and I hid everything, right? Didn't talk to anybody all morning, and found out later that Claire just like freaked out, because she's like, we haven't heard from her. We don't know what's happening. Like, it was hours and they hadn't heard from me. Anyway, John was freaking out. Everybody was freaking out. So then contacted Aaron, said, okay, I'm here. I can be picked up. And they got a volunteer to pick me up from the university, actually drive to the apartments, which was very gutsy of me because I didn't want to leave with just my purse. I'm like, I want to take some of my stuff. So she drove me to the apartments and I packed up as much as I could. And then she took the stuff to the car so nobody would see me like, taking stuff to the car, just because there was staff around the apartments.
Yeah.
Various people in quarantine, and there was always people around. So she took everything to the car, and then I got in her car and she took me to the airport and off I went. And it was very it felt so weird. As soon as I got on the plane, I texted the person who was going to pick me up from the university, because at the same time I was I think Aaron and Mark were laughing at me for this. I'm like, I need to write up all my job, and I need to like make it so people know what's happening. They call it writing up your hat, right? They're like, you don't need to do a hat write up. They'll figure it out. I'm like, no, I don't want to. Oh, I want to screw these people over. Like, you know what I mean? I was just like,
but this
my
is where
senior
you're
was
still in
actually lovely at the time. Like, I
you're still
really
in that halfway house of I'm free,
yeah.
but you've still got the mindset, and you're kind of like,
yeah, because I had people I gave a shit about, and I didn't want to just like, the day before I left, I like, got all my files on my computer in order and just like deleted all my personal stuff and I got everything in like in order so that anybody could just come in and be like, oh, this is what she's working on type thing. Because I felt kind of bad about just leaving everybody. Anyway, so I got on the plane and I texted the guy that was going to pick me up, and I'm like, I'm really sorry. I'm going with family. I just lied, right? I'm like, I'm going with family. Please tell Angela, who's my boss at the time. So tell Angela I'm very sorry, and she's wonderful, and goodbye, basically. And then I deleted. I was using this little texting app like Text Now or something, right? Deleted the app, and just so I wouldn't talk, because I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Deleted the app, deleted everything, so I couldn't talk to them. And then I flew to Colorado and got picked up by Claire and met Claire, and there you go.
And we went from there. And if I remember rightly, Claire ended up teaching you to drive.
That's right. I stayed with them for a little while. I went and I visited family up in Minnesota that I hadn't seen for ages. I had, cousins that were grown up with kids, and got to see everybody there. I spent about 6 weeks in Minnesota. I originally went just to go to somebody's wedding, and then Claire's like, you can stay as long as you want. I'm like, oh, yeah, good point. I guess I can, huh? Because you're used to like, okay, if you're going to a wedding, you're going to be gone. You're going to have this whole chain of command of people you have to request permission from to be able to leave for a couple days. Okay. And then you're like, I'll be back in a few days type thing. So I was like, oh, I'll just go for a week or something. Claire's like, I didn't get you a return ticket. Just let me know when you want to come back and I'll get you a plane ticket wherever you want to go. I'm like, oh, yeah. So then I just I stayed there for 6 weeks and just hung out and bummed around and talked to people and kept talking to John a lot. And it was great. It was such a great vacation. And it was beautiful up there at the time too. It was like early spring, so it was really nice. The mosquitoes hadn't hit yet.
So what I find doesn't get talked about a lot in the interviews. We talk about the escape and then the jobs you got after the escape. But what were those first sort of 2 or 3 days like when you weren't having to deal with Scientology anymore? What's the mindset like, if you will?
It was I felt like I was kind of in shock. Like I was kind of it felt really odd because it was like it's kind of like you keep expecting something to be a certain way and it's not. Like there's so much control exerted over you that you're not used to just like making your own decisions. Like, hey, I want to go to the I want to go shopping for some clothes, and then, you know, go hang out at the mall for a day, for example. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
or I just want to take a walk, or it's just, you're just not used to having that control. You're not used to that control being gone and it being yours, and you can do what you want for however long you want, and no one's going to be checking up on you. And if they are, it's just going to be like, oh, hey, when do you want to get picked up? Like, you know, I would go shopping for some stuff, and Claire would text me, be like, oh, just let me know when you want to get picked up, I'll come pick you up. And it just felt so odd. It was just like, and then at the same time, I was, you know, when you're in the Sea Org and you're listening to what they say about ex-Sea Org members and ex-Scientologists and, you know, attackers of the church and suppressive people and all this stuff, you form your own, you know, ideas about how these people are, and then you meet somebody like Claire Headley
Mhm.
and Mark, and you're just like, this is complete opposite. They're the nicest people. They're not like, they're not people who are just like, you know, scheming how to destroy uh how to destroy Scientologists, or they're not bad intentioned people like Scientology wants you to believe. They're not like, you know, living a life of just utter immorality, or you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
they have a family, they have a house, they have friends, they're just like normal, nice people. And it's really hard to explain. I remember at one point a few days after I was there, I felt really, really bad for thinking badly of them. Because I was like, I feel horrible for how I thought about them before, and how I thought about anybody like this. And
But
it just kind of like,
but again, that goes back to the teachings of Scientology and the
yeah,
teachings of L. Ron
yeah,
Hubbard, how
yeah,
anybody who speaks ill about Scientology is a potential trouble source or is even an SP and this, that, and the other. So it goes back to that mindset, that
yeah.
um, being trained to believe all of this.
That's
It's all
right.
part of the
That's right.
cognitive dissidence that Scientology don't want you to have.
Yeah, like I did the PTSSP course. I think I did
Mhm.
it 3 times while I was there. You know, learning about what a suppressive person is, and how to spot them, and how to confront and shatter suppression and all this. And I'm just like, no, I mean, it's weird because there's so much contradictory information in Scientology, because they have like the characteristics of a suppressive person. It's like this whole long list of characteristics, right? And then and then it's like, you know, all of these things, or someone who is anti-Scientology. Like, you can just have this one thing. Like, that was one thing that really hit home to me in one of Aaron's videos, where he was talking about, you know, no one ever took the characteristics of a suppressive person and like checked me off against all of these characteristics. They just went, oh, he blew from Scientology. He blew, and he's attacking Scientology, and that makes him a suppressive person. Like, and just wipe aside all these other characteristics of, you know, practically being Hitler, you know, to be a suppressive person. It's like, nope, you're getting Scientology, suppressive person.
Absolutely.
Wild shit.
And I mean, this does bring me on neatly to a question that you might not be able to completely answer, but hopefully myself and Chris will be going into more detail with it, because we are going to be doing a series on coercive control.
Fantastic.
Was there any aspects of Scientology that you look back on now and you can see where that coercive control was coming in?
Yes. Yes, and this is actually something I'm going to talk about on my channel more, and I'm going to do some videos about. I know I keep saying I'm going to do videos and then not doing it, but I am going to do videos, I promise. which is the ethics, quote, technology. And Jefferson Hawkins wrote a book that's called Closing Minds, and he breaks down all the ethics book very, very well, because that's what is ultimately used to control Scientologists, control Sea Org members. That's what they use. That's like the Bible, not the Bible of Scientology, but like that's how they control you.
Yeah.
And by telling you, by giving you, like these steps and the like ethics conditions of like, okay, for example, in the doubt formula, you do these steps where you are trying to make up your mind. Do I do this thing or do I do this thing? Or am I going to be a part of this group or part of this group? And if you do the doubt formula the way it says to do it, you'll always end up in Scientology. You'll always end up staying in Scientology. You'll never end up doing anything else. And it's geared that way because and he breaks it down really, really well. So that was I've read the book like 3 times now, and because that was very helpful to me to go through that and really think about it and be like, oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Like all this, it's kind of like makes it not, it kind of gets it out of your head, So yeah, that's the biggest aspect, I think.
Excellent. So you were talking about, because one of the things we were going to talk about is where you're going now, what you're doing now you're out of Scientology. You're talking about making the videos for the YouTube channel. Is there a goal for your channel in particular, which this is being streamed to? I haven't mentioned it up till now because Mrs. J's been doing it. So please go over to Catherine's channel, like her channel, start following her channel, like this video as well on my channel, because it will help the channel grow. So going back to what I was saying, is there a goal with the channel eventually?
Yes. My goal is to, I want to be able to reach people that are still in, people that are in the Sea Org, people that are on staff, or even just Scientologists, reach them as far as like, telling my story of what happened to me and how I made the decision to leave, and that I do have a life that I love outside of Scientology, outside of the Sea Org. I didn't route out. I didn't get a, security check when I left. I just left, and I have a life now, and it's great. And it is possible to do. And there is assistance. There's a lot of people who will help people in my situation. And I really want to reach people specifically that I know, because I know a lot of Sea Org members.
Yeah.
In the 27 years I was there, I knew a lot of Sea Org members. So, and I already helped somebody that way. Someone who was working on leaving and thinking about leaving, saw some of my interviews and was like, "Oh my God, I know her." And he wanted to talk to me specifically. And he found me through Chris Shelton, and I helped him get out. And it was great. I was like, yeah, I would like to do that with more people, because I think that if people see me talking about it, it'll make them start thinking, thinking for themselves what they want to do. Because I know that it's not, so it used to be that, excuse me. It used to be that if you blew from the Sea Org, you get declared, and that declare would go all over the place, and it would be very broadly known that you were a declared suppressive person and blah blah blah, right? They don't do that anymore. So there's probably only a few people who actually know that I blew from the Sea Org and that I'm just living a regular life now. They were either not told about it, or they were told that I had to be, gotten out, or the Columbus staff were probably told I was sent back to LA for something urgent. And if anyone in LA found out, I'm sure they're not really told what happened with me. So just to know what happened is like is huge, actually, because I know that's how I felt when I found people's videos online that were like, I remember this guy. That's what happened to him. That's what happened to her. Oh my God, I remember her. Wow, that happened to her. Like, you know what I mean? And it gets you thinking. So
absolutely.
yeah.
So it's hopefully with all that you already do, and as we go forward, we'll be able to get more of that message across. And it goes without saying, if you need any help from breaking the chains, we're here. We'll be more than happy to help out any way we can.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know Mrs. J will say exactly the same thing before she puts it in the chat.
Yeah, and if anyone's watching this video that I happen to know that wants to talk to me, and because you're thinking of leaving, or you just want somebody to talk to, you can just contact me. My email is on my channel. I'm pretty easy to find.
Absolutely. So before I move on to some questions, because I am conscious that you've got another appointment at 2:00 your time, what's life now like for you? I know you recently got married to John.
Yes.
So what are you doing other than married life?
So I work for the foundation part-time, and otherwise I do things like I just got some chickens.
Nice.
I'm fostering some chickens for my sister-in-law. And I'm keeping some of my own, and I got these chickens that have the Polish chickens that have like the poof on their head. They're so freaking cute. So yeah, and I have cats because I love animals. I'm doing photography. I have an Etsy store where I'm selling my photos online. I do a lot of photography. That's another thing I'd like to show on my channel, because I love sharing artistic things on my channel. I have all sorts of stuff to share, and I I pretty much do what I want to do. I'm in a position where I get to do a job and help people like me. And then I get to do things. I get to pursue my artistic goals. Photography, I make jewelry, I draw, I paint, I do all sorts of things. And
lovely.
Yeah, and it's just fantastic. And like I took a drive yesterday for like an hour, because I glanced outside and I was like, wow, the light's really nice. The light is really nice today. I'm gonna go and get some photos. And I drove up in the mountains a little bit, and it was really nice. I got some good photos, and it's just on a whim, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Not something you do in this year.
Anybody who may still be in Scientology or thinking of leaving, on my channel or on Catherine's, this is what you can do when you leave.
Yeah, you can do what you want to do. Like I don't know, not everybody has like all the artistic goals. Somebody might, I don't know, start a family, I don't know, become a dog sitter. I don't know, like whatever you want to do.
That's the point. It's whatever you want to do. You don't have to do what everybody wants you to do. You can do what you want to do. That's the joy of life.
Yeah. And when you realize that you are not what you're doing in Scientology, and just spending all this time, wasting all this time and energy and giving your whole life for something that's just not doing what you think it's doing. Like you think it's helping this vast numbers of people, and it's really not, because they lie about how many people are involved in Scientology. They even lie to the Scientology community, Scientologists that are in Scientology, about how many people are involved and how many people got reached, how many people got helped. And yeah,
that brings me very nicely onto this question. When you left, how many people did you think were in Scientology?
let's see. It's hard to say. I mean, I did think that there were God, that's really hard to say. How many people did I think were in Scientology?
Because I know at these IAS events and stuff like that, David Miscavige is always saying there's millions and la la la, and we know there's less than 250,000.
Oh yeah, I think there's probably like, I mean, I think now that there's probably like maybe 30 to 40,000 Scientologists, or less than that. Maybe I don't know. It's really hard to say.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard
how many people did I think were in Scientology? I didn't think about it that way. Strangely enough, I didn't think about it that way. I didn't think like, oh, how many people are in Scientology? Because again, it's kind of a complicated answer, because you have people that just bought a book, that are in the central files, that are contacted and gotten to do more, but do you consider them Scientologists or not? Like, you know what I mean? So I'm sorry, I'm not answering the question. It's kind of hard to answer.
Well, which is fine. I did think it was going to be a little bit of one of those where you weren't sure, because with being in the Sea Org, you're only told what you need to know. You're not told everything.
And you can go like where I was in middle management. You can go and you can look at the statistics for every org. You can see how many people they had on course. You can see how many people paid for, how much services were paid for and all this stuff. And that's I mean, it's like a couple thousand people on course maybe per week, and that includes that includes flag. It's not a lot. No. And it's weird because that's a huge contradiction in itself, because you go to these events and, like you say, it's like this massive expansion that's occurring. But then when you're in management, you're being told all the time that not enough people are coming in, and you need to do this and this and this, and you're not managing correctly because there's not enough public coming in, and it's just such contradictions.
Absolutely. So, I hope we answered that as best we could, Mrs. J. Just a quick question from Betsy Sue. I know we're going back to where we were talking about staff getting paid and that. I thought staff got services in exchange for working at the org.
They do. I don't know if I said something different, but yeah, they definitely do.
No, I don't think we talked about it, and I think that's why Betsy Sue brought it up.
Yeah, they do get services. They're often on the bottom of the list as far as auditing, because people who pay for auditing will get auditing first, and it's not like hardly any orgs have like just auditors that are devoted to auditing staff. So you'll find a lot of staff that are like nowhere on the bridge, have done hardly anything. But yeah, they do get free services. But if you leave, you get a bill for your services. I have no idea what mine was.
The famous what's it got? My mind's gone blank on what they call it now, but it's quite famous. Everybody talks about it. Freeloader bill. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, freeloader bill. That's right. I wonder if they would give me mine if I asked for it.
So another question that is going back, because I was starring them as we went along because I didn't want to interrupt the flow. So just going back to when you were talking about routing out, a question from Bot Buddy. If your mother and sister were out of Scientology before you left, why were you worried about routing out when you started wanting out yourself?
Well, because I was initially thinking that I would remain a Scientologist. And in order to remain a Scientologist and keep doing services and keep going up the bridge to total freedom, you can't just blow and then be like, oh, okay, I'm back to do courses now. They'll be like, no, you're not. You're going to go do these steps over here. And so you're not a suppressive person. And like, you need to handle your suppressive person status because you blew. So I was initially thinking I was going to remain in Scientology, and then I decided that I wasn't.
Absolutely. So,
which was a very good decision.
Just a jokey comment that I nearly brought up at the time, but Betsy Sue, bless her, how did you know how to use a hotspot? I can't even figure that out.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't know. I figured it out. I had a very good reason to figure it out. So it was pretty easy actually. I don't know. There's you just go to settings and you go to hotspot and you switch it on basically.
So Betsy Sue currently watching on your channel because it's got the thing.
Oh, that's great. Thank you to anyone who's watching on my channel. That's really appreciated.
We've got another question from Betsy Sue here. What excuse does Scientology give as to why you have to repeat a course? If the course is perfect and you passed it, why would you have to retake it?
Let's see. There can be several reasons. You're not applying it. Like in my case, like I'll take a real life example. Okay, so I mentioned that I'd done the PTSSP course several times. So so they made me retake it when my mom left Scientology and did her whole thing and put stuff online and was attacking and trying to get me out. They made me retake the PTSSP course so that I could confront and handle my mother, I guess. Yeah. And okay, so there's that. Or there's like what's happened a lot in the last 10 years or so. They've released a lot of courses saying like, you know, this course was incorrectly put together and incorrectly compiled, and now this is the right way, and this is how Ron intended it to be, and now you can redo it and it'll be awesome, and you can pay all this money and do it again. Isn't it great?
And that then brings me on to another question, because from what I understand from reading about it and obviously listening, because I was never in, but I thought they weren't allowed to change anything that Ron had written or done. I don't get it.
Miscavige gets around that. He gets around that, and he does it very well. And what he does is what he says is, okay, so we found in the archives, or after an extensive research project and going to all these different areas where Hubbard lectured or did stuff, you know, St. Hill and stuff at Flag or whatever. So we found that it actually, this course, this book, this policy, it was wrong. It was not transcribed correctly. It was issued by someone who wasn't authorized to issue it, or it was canceled by someone who wasn't authorized to cancel it. And really, Hubbard said it wasn't supposed to be canceled. And then he says, and this is the way it's supposed to be. This is the new course. This is the new policy, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like, wow, cool, great. And he's been doing this since the basics came, since the basics was in 2007, when he re-released all the books and said they were typographical and all this stuff was wrong with them, and so re-released them. And so it just keeps things going that way. And really that was I thought it was interesting when that was done, because that's when the line was taken out about homosexuality being like the worst thing ever. Like, just, I could quote it if I really think about it, but there's a line in one of the books where it talks about it, and that was taken out of the book. And I specifically remember it because I read that book like probably 3 times or something, and I was like, how interesting that they took that out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's them trying to make it look like they're coming into the 21st century and they're nowhere close.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And of course, nobody talks about the fact that that was taken out. Like, that's not one of the things that was announced. Like, oh, we took this out so that we're more acceptable now. It was just taken out, and no, like nothing.
Do it quietly and hope nobody notices.
Yeah.
So we've got a quick question from Mrs. J as well, which takes us back to when we were talking about Columbus. Do others go to the library there and get their Wi-Fi?
I don't know. See, I figure that since I was doing all this, and I know that there's no possible way that I was the only one, or that I'm the only one who's done stuff like this. I know that there's not.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if you really want to find out, if you really want to know what has happened at Int Management, what's happened with, regards to things like the people being in the hole and people leaving, and if you really want to know, you can find out. But you have to, it's that breaking through that barrier where it's like, I don't want to know. Or it's like, these are all lies told by apostates or things like that. Like, you have to break through that barrier. And that is the hardest part. And that's like that. And that's totally internal. Nobody can do that for you. You have to do it in your own mind. And it's really, really hard. I spent a year kind of.
It's breaking that mindset that you've learned and the learned behavior that you've got from all those years of being in. That's the hard bit.
Completely.
So we've got one final question from Betsy Sue, and then I've got a comment that I want to bring up that made me laugh. It came out when she put it. Do you think they keep the Sea Org members busy so they don't see that they are just being kept busy, so that they don't notice the worldwide numbers are shrinking?
Yes. Simply answered yes. A more complex answer would be, if you're in management, you do realize things are shrinking, but you think it's because you're not managing correctly. That's why. You think it's because of your management skills and what management is doing. You don't blame chairman of the board. Oh yeah, no, chairman of the board put out all this stuff and we just have to get it used to get people coming into the orgs. You think it's because of management that it's shrinking.
And I'm gonna say a good evening to apostate Alex, who's just appeared in your chat saying, "Oh my God, what? I missed the notifications." Hey, Catherine.
I forgot to tell him. I should have told him. I didn't. I'm so bad at this sometimes. Hey, before we go, I can show one of my recent photos of someplace that I went.
We will do that. I just want to bring up this comment from Betsy Sue because it made me laugh. This was when we were talking about Dianetics and not mentioning Scientology. I find it odd that they use Dianetics as a way into Scientology because I couldn't get through the first 3 pages of that book.
Yeah, you're not the only one. You're not the only one. You really have to get into a weird. You really have to like bend your thinking to be able to understand this. And I did it for many years with a lot of the material. I've studied a lot of the material, and you really have to bend your mind to make it make sense. A lot of it.
Absolutely. And before you show these photos from your website, as Alex is in the chat, I do want to mention this. The IAS event, Alex is organising a protest for it. Mrs. J did send me some photographs and stuff that I meant to put together, just to put a little video together that we could have shown, but I haven't had time to do it. So if you could support the IAS protest with Alex, I think, Alex, do you want to put your email in if anybody wants to contact you about it, or Mrs. J, the website, so that people can get involved and be at the protest at St. Hill. I can't remember the date now off the top of my head.
Oh, I don't know the date either. I didn't know.
I just know how temperamental my computer is, and if I go back to go and look at the date, it's probably gonna crash. There you go, 25th of October, next Friday at St. Hill.
Oh,
so
good.
If anybody can get involved, please get in contact with Alex and let's show him what's going on.
I like that.
Let's support all the work that Alex is doing.
Somebody said, "Yay, Alex is the best. Please buy him a coffee." Oh, that's great.
So yes, let's support that and support all the work that Alex is doing, the work that Catherine's doing, the work the Aftermath Foundation is doing, and other X's are doing within this community, because we really do need to get these stories out there. People really need to know how much Scientology does affect people's lives. I've told people this story who know me outside of this, but I was back in the UK about 6 months ago, and my phone vibrated and I had to go and check something on Discord, and my mum said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm in an anti-Scientology thing. I'm one of the moderators." And I had to explain to my mother, who's 78, what Scientology is. So let's get this out there, because there are people out there that don't even realize what Scientology is and the damage that Scientology does. We need to get these stories out there.
We have to keep talking about this kind of stuff. We really have to keep talking about this kind of stuff, because I feel like there's not enough talk, or there needs to be more talk about these kind of stories, and less talk about I'll just say drama.
Absolutely, 100%.
That's not helping. It doesn't help anybody get out. Like,
No.
I was thinking about it the other day. I was thinking about if I would have come out in the last 6 months, and if I would have been watching videos like this and videos of various people, and I was just like, there's people I would never contact for help. I was just like, no, like it would have been hard. I think it would have been hard to find somebody to trust. Which,
absolutely.
Anyway.
Absolutely. So we need to get these stories out there.
Yeah.
Also, just on a side note, we do have a Discord, a Breaking the Chains Discord, that Mrs. J will drop a link to in the chat for me, so that I don't crash my computer. So if you want to learn more, please feel free to join. It's not just Scientology. We've got things in there for other religions as well that we will be looking at. So, Catherine, do you want to show some of the photos?
I would love to. Sorry to spring that on you. I just thought of it.
No. I did think about it earlier on, and I forgot to say something, and I'm glad you brought it up.
Okay, good. So I just opened my Lightroom. I think you have to make it so that I can share my screen.
Yeah, I'm just going. I think it's down there. Oh, hang on. Let me go in there.
Okay, it's ready for when you want to switch it. And I'll just say what each of these are. Just a few.
Oh, I don't know if it does let. Have you got share screen at the bottom of your thing?
Yeah, I just went to sharing. So I think you have to toggle something so that I can, or you have to share it, or you have to toggle something so that I can share it. I'm sorry.
There it is. It's there.
Good. Yay!
There we go. I just had to add it to the stage. It appeared down the bottom. Sorry, guys. This is the first time I've ever done this with a guest wanting to share something on the screen, so technical difficulties.
And sorry, this is just in my Lightroom app, but this is so this is in Central Oregon. I went here a couple weeks ago to visit my sister, and it's on so I live west of the Cascades. This is east of the desert in Oregon, and it's beautiful. So that's called Smith Rock. So I went there. Let's see. Hopefully it's gonna, 1 second here. Come on. You can do it. There we go. That's another one. The view of Smith Rock. This is in the middle of the Cascades, actually. I drove through the Cascades there and back. And this is just some fall stuff. Leaves. This, believe it or not, is a picture from the Costco parking lot in Salem. Isn't that cool?
Oh, that is lovely.
Yeah,
wow.
That's pretty cool.
Beautiful.
Huh?
I like that.
This is from yesterday, showing some fall stuff because the leaves are turning. It's really pretty. This is just right. This is right in the town where I live. Same with this. This is right in town. And so is that one. I think that's the last one. Yeah, that's the last one. There we go.
They are
So,
beautiful, and they're available on your, or might be available on your.
they're not available. These are my newest ones. They're not available yet. I
Yeah.
will put them in my shop, in my Etsy shop. And you can find a link to that on my channel.
Excellent. So
This is just some of the stuff I do. Like that's what I get to do when I go out. I can just go and chase the light and get some good photos, and I love it.
Absolutely
So
beautiful
fun.
photos as well.
Thank you.
As somebody had said in the chat earlier on, just embrace it and call yourself a photographer, Catherine.
Oh yeah, I do. I mean, I try. And you know, all I use, this is what I use.
Yeah.
That's all I use. It's
Modern technology. I say this to my kids all the time, that if somebody had told me back in the 80s that I'd be carrying something in my pocket that was as powerful as a computer and had a camera on it that was better than a lot of the ones you can buy, I'd have never have believed them. Never have believed them.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And then my kids just go, "Yeah, that's because you're old, Dad."
Yeah.
But there we go. So that was part one. So many other questions, so many other things that we need to cover. We haven't even talked about your life in Scientology. So there will be at least a part two.
Definitely.
There are a lot of other things that are going to be happening with this channel and with the Breaking the Chains Discord. We've got a series with Chris coming up on coercive control, because it is an area that Chris is an expert in. I've also got an interview lined up at some point with Michelle Carpenter about MLM and are they cults, and the comparisons there, and other things in the pipeline. So keep an eye on the channel. Like, share, subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe on Catherine's channel. Let's get her numbers up as well. And we will start moving forward, and we will start to see things grow, and we'll get these stories out there. Mrs. J, because I know you can't see it, but I can. Peter Anderson's just asked if you could drop my channel into Catherine's chat.
Oh yeah, please do. And I'll put a link to it in this. I'll fix the description.
I'll put a link. I think I've put a link on the thing, but I'll make sure as well. And we will go forward with everything, and hopefully we'll keep getting the message out there, and start getting more and more people out of Scientology and out of cults. Full stop, with a bit of luck. Exactly. And Alex, I hope everything goes well on the 25th. Unfortunately, I can't make it back to the UK for that, so I'm going to have to miss out on that one, but I'd love to be there, and I hope it goes very, very well, and the protest achieves what it needs to achieve. So thank you for joining me, Catherine. Thank you for everybody for watching, for commenting, for the questions. We will post when part 2 is ready to go, and we will move forward. But remember, people, we are here to break the chains, not lock the chains.
Well said.